Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another book review from the Slappyworld book series, and it's book number 18, Night of the Squawker. Now, a lot of you might be scratching your heads. Completionist, how did you get this book so early? Well, it was my birthday. I turned 29 years old. I feel old. Go ahead and let me know down in the comment section, hey, Completionist, you're getting old. And I was shopping around about 2 hours away from me. I went to some bookstores I like to frequent, and there happened to be a Barnes & Noble, so me and my girlfriend, we stopped by to see what they got. I was perusing mainly the physical media aisle and like the movies and such, and I found a good deal on something. And for giggles, I wanted to go to the Goosebumps section just to see what they had, and I saw this sitting there, one copy. And I was blown away because this book's supposed to be released on April 4th. And apparently I'm one of the few people that actually own a physical copy. And because it was my birthday, and because this is a brand new Goosebumps book, and I feel like this is a blessing, I went ahead and read it so I can put out a review for you guys. And it seems to be a trend with these later Slappyworld books where I'm just flat out disappointed. This is no different. I'll tell you this now. This has to be one of the most mediocre Goosebumps books I've ever read. With some redeeming qualities to it, but for the most part, it's just a generic book. For it being slated kind of like a body horror book. The body horror really isn't all that spectacular. And by the end, it makes me kind of feel whatever about the entire book. And I'm not impressed. I will say this, though. I think this is a prime example of a Goosebumps book that will be inherently divisive. I think a lot of younger readers, or maybe readers who like some of the sillier Goosebumps books, might get a kick out of this one. Especially by the end twist, which I think the ending twist of this book might be in the all-time love it or hate it twists in Goosebumps history. And you'll see why when you read this book. But for me, would I recommend it? Not really. But it is a brand new book, and I do stress that everybody should go check this out. You might like it more than I did. And we're about to get into the plot overview portion. If you don't want to listen to this, because this is coming out, at least at the time of making this review, this is coming out prior to the real release of April 4th. I still don't understand how I got my copy so early. I'll put a portion link in the bottom of the video in the comment section, so you can click on where you just go to the review portion where you'll hear my thoughts, my rants, and my overall opinion on the book. So if you want to skip the plot of review and come back to it at a later point, I do stress that my videos probably serve better to all of you out there if you've read the book and then you watch my opinions. I think a lot of you seem to resonate with that, and I do agree. Skip that portion, go read the book, and then come back and listen to the plot review, and then match it up with my thoughts. It'll make a lot more sense. But yeah, let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away. So the story starts off with our main character, Cooper, and it seems like him and his friend are wandering in these woods, and they're gathering firewood to, I guess, build a fire. And there's a revelation that comes as they're gathering firewood that there's a hint that a zombie apocalypse is coming. And they should have listened to everybody. And there comes a point where they interact with apparent zombies crawling out of the ground. And they get really freaked out. And then the rug gets pulled from under us. And it's revealed that Cooper and his friends are actually recording a movie. And there's a director directing the film. And you hear this backstory about Cooper and his friends are trying to shoot this zombie apocalypse movie for this film contest that's coming around the bend. And they think this idea will be a shoe-in winner for this year's contest. And they're so stoked that they have this idea, but the zombies fumbled up a scene. And that causes them to kind of take a break in filming. Well, Cooper's sister, Anna, eventually comes out of the woodwork and tells Cooper that it's time for him to go home because they have to prepare to go on this fishing trip, this annual fishing trip that their parents take them on every year. And he goes into some backstory about how his dad is like an avid outdoorsman. He likes doing this type of stuff, like fishing, hunting, you name it, because he's a scientist. And the same thing with his mom. They're just outdoorsy people. And Cooper rather spend his focus making this movie and talking about zombies than going to a campground and fishing with their parents and talking about fish. He just has no interest in it. And he tells Anna to scram, and Anna's like, well, I'm just going to, if I go by myself, Dad's just going to come after you anyway. So Cooper says, yeah, you got a point. And he bids his friends farewell, and he heads back with his sister to meet up with his family so they can go on this fishing trip. Now, off the bat, one thing you'll notice about Cooper and Anna's relationship is that they have really good character dynamics, and I want to give a compliment to R.L. Stine here for Cooper's character. Throughout this story, Cooper has this older brother connection to Anna that's kind of wholesome, where he genuinely cares about her, and at the same time, he also wants nothing to do with her. And Anna, as you'll get to understand, Anna wants to be a part of this movie, but Cooper doesn't want her to do it, and he has to, before they leave, he tells his friends to stay out of it because their friends say, why can't she be like a third zombie and be a part of this movie? And Cooper's like, no, just don't do it, right? He's very possessive over it, and he thinks Anna will kind of ruin it. And Anna feels kind of hurt by it, but, she understands. And she's like, well, if I can't be in the movie, you can't use my three-legged rabbit. And there's a revelation about Anna that she is a caring soul. She likes to take in hurt animals that she finds out in the wild, and she rehabilitates them and sometimes keeps them like pets. And Cooper's kind of annoyed with that hobby of hers. She has all these pets lying around the house that she's caring for and nursing. Sometimes she lets them free, sometimes she keeps them. And he thinks that his sister's weird, but he still has that caring sentiment for her, you know what I mean? So when it comes time for them to go on this fishing trip, Cooper's having banter with his dad, who also has really good character dynamics with Cooper. And his dad's giving him an idea. How about, instead of worrying about this zombie movie, why don't you make like a documentary or found footage movie around fishing, right? There's some scary stuff that could be done around fishing and wildlife. And Cooper thinks that's kind of boring, but, Anna, to kind of, to push his buttons a little bit, chimes in and says, yeah, you'd be better off doing that. And Cooper feels kind of like his ideas are unappreciated. And that comes across in the story a little bit. Well, they end up at this campground type of place where they park their car and they take their fishing rods and they head out to this lake. And let's just say Anna and Cooper wander off from their parents and they head into the woods and they hear this commotion. And they come across this really strange bird. And this bird appears to have a broken leg. And Anna, being the caring type that she wants to, help injured animals, takes it upon herself to want to help the bird. And Cooper's like, we have no idea what bird that is. That could be you don't know what that bird is carrying. You don't know what species it is. It could be dangerous. Well, Anna, being her, her caring self, tries to help the bird. And the parents overhear the commotion and make their way over to them. But before they can help Anna, she ends up getting bit by this bird. This unknown species of bird that apparently is what it looks like on this cover done by Brandon Dorman, right? So, after she gets bit, the parents kind of freak out and they want to get her home because everybody's up in a frenzy. She's not feeling well. She's feeling kind of feverish. And the brother is worried about her, saying, look, she got bit by this bird. But they end up taking the bird home with them to rehabilitate him, right? And to make matters worse, they overcome a sign as they're leaving. There's a sign on this fence that says, beware. These birds are for testing, and there's experiments going on with them. But the parents make a logical decision to let Anna still go ahead and rehabilitate this bird. Yeah, just follow along. Well, as the story goes on, Anna is starting to appear kind of weird, right? And Cooper's making a mental note of it. Well, Anna is starting to exhibit out of character behavior that maybe resembles her behaving like a bird. She's went ahead and named the bird that she rescued named Augie. Augie is the name of the bird that's on the cover here. And Augie, you know, he has like a popsicle splint on him, rehabilitating in her room and keeping him up all night. And to make matters worse, one of his friends had to back out of the film that they were making. He was one of the zombies because he got ill. So he has to now go to his sister to be the second zombie. Well, Anna doesn't want to because now she has all of her focus on Augie. And it takes some convincing and some participation from the mom to say, hey, look, you know you want to be part of Cooper's movie. So she agrees. Says, fine, let's go to the shooting location. And Cooper takes her to the shooting location with all of his friends. And they're getting prepared to shoot some scenes with her dressed up like a zombie. But something weird happens where she does something really out of character and she ups and disappears. Now, there are some things going on in the story that Cooper notices before this. He notices that there might be potential feathers coming out of her that she's apparently like shed. And he can't really pinpoint what's going on, but he thinks that this bird might be the cause of all these changes Anna's going through. Well, it culminates in the woods, right, where this big event happens, and I don't want to spoil it. And let's say the fire department has to get involved to come and resolve the situation. And it turns out Anna's just fine, and the fire department's like, hey, look, don't be doing this again. You know it's a crime to you know, report false things like this. Don't do it anymore. And the kids feel kind of spooked, especially Cooper, and he doesn't want to film for the rest of the day, so him and Anna go home. And Cooper starts to get this suspicion that something's wrong with Anna and starts spying on her and her bird, Augie. And there comes a point where Augie almost escapes, but the dad rescues the bird, and Cooper's like, well, now great, now we can't get rid of Augie. Well, feeling defeated and feeling like the movie is just too weird to keep going on, he's talking to his friends, and he's like, look, I had this suspicion, and we all witnessed this behavior of Anna, that she's acting like a bird. Well, instead of doing this zombie idea, which Cooper even calls garbage, why not film a documentary / found footage style movie for this contest centered around Anna and her actually turning into a bird? That would be far scarier than some fictional story we made up. And his friends seem to be on board, and he's like, look, I'll record it on my phone, I'll secretly spy on her, and we can make a movie like this and be a surefire way to win the contest. So he goes along with that idea, and he starts following her and recording things she does. And it gets to points in the story where she does some really out of character things. He catches her in her room, you know, making bird noises, acting very strange, like a bird would. There's a scene with her, you know, that kind of, it's foreshadowed from another scene early on in the book. I don't really want to spoil it, but it maybe involves eggs, right? And her weird behavior seems to be tied to Augie, and he's recording this, and then it, you know, there's another situation that happens where one night he hears her get up, and he decides to go spy on her, and she leaves the house with a trash bag. She goes out into the woods, gathers some things, goes back home, and he goes back into the house to spy on her even further, and it looks like she's building a nest inside of her closet. And this seems to be the breaking point for Cooper. He's getting to the point where he thinks he's developed enough scenes, and he has to tell his parents about what he's seen. He's reserved the whole story, and he's even made commentary about how has his parents not noticed these changes going on with Anna. And he essentially breaks down and does the you gotta believe me angle with his parents. It says, look, you have to believe me. Anna has been acting strange after she got bit by Augie, and she's developing behaviors that insinuate that she's turning into a bird. She has feathers growing out of her body. It's not really described all that well in the book, but, you know, he tells them she has feathers, she's building a nest in her room. I have to show you this. And the parents are like, okay, well, let's go see it. They go to see it, and it was gone. And, of course, her excuse, Anna's, is like, well, I was building this for Augie. And he's like, you know what? I got video proof on her. Let me show you the video. And all these clips that I've built up. And Anna's shocked that her privacy was invaded by Cooper, but Cooper's like, look, it's for your own good. We need to get you help. Just know that I'm doing this to help you. And you feel that sense of, you know, urgency within Cooper because he genuinely cares about his sister. But at the same time, he wanted to use her story for self-gain. It's a very weird mix for a character, and I definitely think Cooper's one of the more standout main characters that I've seen in Goosebumps. But anyway, he goes to find his phone. He can't find his phone. Well, after looking around, he finds that the phone was in the possession of Anna. And he's like, Anna, why do you have my phone? She's like, I don't know. You know, I didn't touch your phone, blah, blah, blah. And they start going back and forth. And he looks on his phone, and of course the videos were deleted. And he's like, well, great. Now I have no movie for my film festival. I have nothing. I have a half-finished film that I scrapped, and then I was building this, but now it's ruined. And he tells his friends that there's no longer a movie, but his best friend seems to say, you know, we can always make something next year. I think the prime focus should be now we need to help Anna. And Cooper makes a decision that leads into the final act that it has to be Augie. Augie's somehow tied to this. He's infected her with something, and the best thing to do is to get rid of Augie. And Cooper may or may not try to attempt to do this with the bird, right? And what happens is there's a whole event involving Anna, that Anna does something to Cooper that's kind of bloody, and let's just say it like that. That's probably the most goriest part of the book, if you even call it that. And then after that happens, Cooper starts to behave kind of weird. Some weird things start happening to him. And there is a Deus Ex Machina last-minute twist. And this is probably going to be the most love it or hate it part of the entire book for all of you. Where the rug gets pulled under from the readers, and we realize the truth about really what's been going on with Anna and now what's going on with Cooper. And hints of this were dropped, and I purposely skipped over them because if I touched on them, that would spoil the whole book for you. But there may be some breadcrumbs dropped throughout the book that point the finger in the direction of a certain party that could be behind all of this. And it's essentially that, and it makes the book have a darker tone to it by the end, and it's kind of goofy at the same time, and I can see why people might love this twist ending. But at the same time, it takes away everything the book was building and makes it feel kind of pointless at the same time. And that's where Night of the Squawker ends. So yeah, let's get into the positives first. I do have positives with this book, even though overall I feel like kind of whatever with it. Cooper. I think he deserved a way better book than this, but he is one of the more intriguing characters I've come across in Goosebumps. He has a monologue to him, but it's not like he has a deep emotional connection with the reader, but he has a really distinct personality. He's snarky, he's witty, he has a creative side to him, kind of like an Alex Hunter. I would say that this is a close second to Alex Hunter that I found in Goosebumps, where he has that snarky side to him, but he's also caring, and he cares about his family, especially his sister, even though him and her don't really get along all that well. He still has that protective older brother mentality. And at the same time, he cares about art, and he wants to make a film, and he has this opportunity to make a real-life horror movie with his sister, and he tries to capitalize on it. And at the same time, he wants to use this to help her. And, you know, the reason... His reason might upset a lot of you when you hear it, where he's trying to justify his decision to record his sister. He figures that his parents, since they're scientists, can help fix her. That might be something to kind of take issue with this character. I definitely think Cooper could be a love it or hate it character for a lot of you, but I really dig Cooper. Like I said, not the deepest monologue ever, not that much emotion, but he definitely has a distinct personality, and he bounces off other characters in the story, which leads into character dynamics. All the characters in this book have a distinct personality and are kind of fun. I think the weakest character is probably the mom, but the friends are cool. They feel like genuine friends. Anna has this distinct little sister personality. She kind of breaks the the archetype a little bit. And I kind of like how the book is more focused on the horror of happening to her and the older brother witnessing their younger sibling going through something really weird and wanting to help them. I mean, there is an emotional side to it, and I think that's really helped by the dynamics of Cooper and Anna. They have a really complex relationship. It's not really supposed to be understood, but there's unconditional love there, and you feel that. Even the dad, before we get into the negatives with the parents, the dad has some funny quips to him, and he actually has some funny dad moments in here that I quite enjoyed. So yeah, that was great. The atmosphere to this book is decent. I mean, not the best thing ever, but there's a decent atmosphere to it. There's like a wooded area. You get this sense of, I don't know, I think the atmosphere is better in the first half than the second half, but it was pretty good. I like the setup to it. I like the ideas behind it, where you have this movie contest. I was hoping that Stein would be able to thematically tie a zombie movie to maybe a mutant bird that can create zombies. That might be too complex for Stein to tackle, but there was opportunities there with it that he didn't really capitalize on, but the setup was pretty good. I mean, it has some strong points to it, but the negatives really add up. They really do. And the first negative I have, and I just want to throw this out there. The parents and the logic of the first third of this book might take you out of this book completely, especially if you think that some really dumb decisions sometimes are just unforgivable. There is a choice made. Like I said, the parents overlook a warning sign about these birds being encaged in this area where they find this bird, and they still bring it home, and it drives the story forward. It's completely it's completely illogical. Let's just put it that way. And the naiveness of the parents and just sheerly not paying attention to their kids. It's very reminiscent to a book that people would think this is copying a little bit, and that's Chicken Chicken. Now, I can agree, they're maybe not as bad and upfront, ignorant as the parents in that book, but they're pretty ignorant here too. Not to that level, but it's still a thing. My second issue with the book is that it has a strong start, and after the first 15 or so pages, when it gets time to go to the fishing trip, all the way up until Cooper decides to film his sister instead of making the zombie movie, that whole portion of the book is kind of bland. And it doesn't go the directions I would have thought it would have gone. It was setting up this potential body horror story, but the body horror we got was really tame and kind of lame, to be honest. And it was just really bland with a bunch of dialogue. I think this might be the most dialogue-heavy Goosebumps book I have ever read. And I don't know if that's a good thing, but it just feels like they were building so many scenes here, and the scenes never really got any type of interesting beyond the fact that it's just building suspense over than showing graphic body horror or something. A bunch of red herring stuff. Just been there, done that with these books. It's fine, but it wasn't really all that engaging. And then it kind of picks back up with when the idea kicks on that Cooper's going to film her. But going into the third negative, that idea of the film, this whole idea about making a movie that's been touched on and building plot throughout this entire book, gets dropped by the final act. And it's very reminiscent to something like Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes, when they're talking about this gardening competition the whole book, and we never see anything come of that. This movie is no different. It's no different, and it feels like a waste of time. I was really let down by that. I was hoping that the movie would tie in something to the story, and I was hoping that it would, but it just never really did. And that was a letdown. Yeah. I guess, to put into perspective, my fourth negative would be there's some original things in this book, but for the most part, there's plot points that if you've read Chicken Chicken, Lizard of Oz, or even the short story from Tales to Give You Goosebumps, I'm Telling, and you put them into a blender and you kind of adopt all these different plot points with the characters in those stories and kind of mesh them together, you know what to expect here with some of these characters. And the hints drop throughout this book with a specific party. You'll be able to pick up and predict exactly what's going to happen in the end. And unfortunately, the fifth negative I have is the ending itself. Not only is it predictable, but it feels like, in terms of what the story's actually building, it comes out of left field. But you know what's going to happen, but how the story builds to that point, it just feels like, okay, we shut off this point of the story and now we're all of a sudden here. It's kind of jarring. And like I said early on, this is probably going to be one of the most loved or hated twist endings in Goosebumps history. Only because, on one hand, it recontextualizes the whole book into something dark and goofy. And I think a lot of people might appreciate the darkness to it. And I think for the first time in history, a certain thing could be considered a villain in Goosebumps. Like, legit. But on the other side of the coin, it's really dumb, and it recontextualizes the whole book, like I said, but it makes everything before it feel like a waste of time. And I hate those type of twist endings. Sometimes Deus Ex Machina twists can work when it's building up to that point organically. And also when you don't see it coming. And that's what makes them genius sometimes. Here, when you know it's coming, and it hits you randomly like that, and it takes away from the whole book in a bad way, that's where it fails. And it's no different here. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. This was a disappointing book. No different from the other Slappyworld books that I've read, from like 5th grade zombies to up to this point, at least in terms of release. I don't know what to say. I think a lot of you, if you're fans of Chicken Chicken, you might actually think this might be a downgrade to Chicken Chicken. I'm not lying. And I'm not saying much if you don't like Chicken Chicken. This is not much of an upgrade, even if you do think it's better. This is just whatever book to me. Like, I probably will never revisit this book, to be honest. I do love Cooper, and I think Cooper deserves a better book. But from a 0 to 5 star basis, for all the problems I mentioned, they were like medium to high heavy hitters. And honestly, I couldn't bring myself to give this book higher than a 3.5. So it was going to be that or less. And I settled somewhere between 3 to 3.5, only because I think it's a D tier book. It's more meh for me. Not good, not bad. Kind of leaning that slightly okay. I think Cooper kind of saves it from being just on the lower end of that. And some of the atmosphere bits and the character dynamics make it more entertaining in some of the weaker aspects of it. So I'm willing to give this thing probably like about a 3.3 out of 5. It's more of a light okay for me. I'm just really meh on it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's bad. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be in the same camp where I'm at with it. It's kind of a mixed bag of a book. It has some really strong qualities, but everything else is just kind of mediocre. And like I said, the twist will be the make or break for you, whether you think this book is good or where I'm at with it. So, that's my thoughts on Night of the Squawker. I know a lot of you haven't read it yet, but if you have, or when you get to that point, let me know down in the comment section. Did you love this? Did you hate this? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.